Right now, as you're hearing these words, I want you to notice something. Notice that you're aware of these words. Notice that there's a part of you that's listening, that's present, that's here. And now notice, were you thinking about something else just a moment ago? Were you lost in thought about something that happened earlier today, or something you need to do later, or something someone said, or something you're worried about? Most likely, you were. Because that's what the human mind does. It thinks constantly, relentlessly, endlessly. And most of us, most of the time, are so lost in that stream of thinking that we don't even realize we're thinking. We believe we are our thoughts. We become completely identified with the voice in our head, following it wherever it goes, often into places that cause us suffering, stress, anxiety, and pain. And that's what I want to talk with you about today. Not how to stop thinking, because that's not possible and it's not even desirable, but how to stop getting lost in your thoughts, how to create space between you and your thinking, how to become the observer of your mind rather than the prisoner of it. Let me start by asking you this. Have you ever driven somewhere and arrived at your destination with no memory of the drive itself? You were on autopilot, lost in thought the entire time, and somehow your body navigated the route while your mind was somewhere else entirely. Or have you ever been in a conversation with someone and realized you haven't heard a word they've said for the last 2 minutes because you were thinking about something else? Or have you ever eaten an entire meal without tasting it because your mind was replaying an argument or rehearsing a future conversation? These are all examples of being lost in thought. And while they might seem harmless, even normal, they represent something profound. You're missing your life. You're not present for your actual experience. You're living in your head instead of living in reality. And here's what makes this so insidious. When you're lost in thought, you don't know you're lost in thought. It's only when you wake up, when something brings you back to the present moment, that you realize you were gone. It's like being asleep, but thinking you're awake. You're dreaming, but you believe the dream is reality. And the content of these dreams, these thought patterns we get lost in, they're often not pleasant. We're not lost in thought about wonderful things most of the time. We're ruminating about the past, replaying conversations, reliving painful experiences, analyzing what went wrong, imagining what we should have said or done. Or we're worrying about the future, catastrophizing about what might happen, planning obsessively to try to control outcomes we can't control, rehearsing scenarios that will probably never occur. Or we're judging ourselves, criticizing ourselves, comparing ourselves to others, telling ourselves stories about our inadequacy or unworthiness or failure. This constant thinking, this endless mental activity, it's exhausting. It's one of the primary sources of human suffering. The Buddha recognized this 2,500 years ago when he taught that suffering comes from attachment and aversion, which are both mental processes, ways of thinking about experience rather than directly experiencing it. The Stoic philosophers understood it when they taught that it's not events that disturb us, but our judgments about events. Modern psychology confirms it. Most of our emotional distress comes not from what's actually happening, but from what we're thinking about what's happening. We create our own suffering through the stories we tell in our minds. So why do we do this? Why do we get so lost in thought? Why does the mind produce this constant stream of mental chatter? There are several reasons. First, the mind is a problem-solving organ. That's its job. It's designed to identify problems and figure out solutions. And it's very good at this. This is how we've survived as a species. But here's the catch. The mind will create problems if there aren't any real ones to solve. It will manufacture threats, imagine dangers, worry about possibilities, just to have something to work on. Because when the mind isn't actively problem-solving, it feels uncomfortable. It feels like it's not doing its job. So it keeps itself busy with thinking, even when that thinking isn't useful or necessary. Second, we've been conditioned to believe that thinking is valuable, that more thinking is better, that the way to solve every problem is to think about it more. We're praised for being thoughtful, analytical, intelligent, which all involve thinking. We're rarely taught that there's another way of engaging with life, a way that doesn't involve constant mental activity. We're not taught about presence, about awareness, about the space beyond thought. So we default to thinking because it's the only tool we know how to use. Third, thinking gives us a sense of control, or at least the illusion of control. When we think about something, when we analyze it and plan for it and worry about it, we feel like we're doing something about it. We feel like we're preparing, protecting ourselves, staying ahead of potential problems. But most of this thinking is actually useless. It doesn't change anything. It doesn't solve anything. It just keeps us trapped in our heads, disconnected from the present moment, disconnected from our actual lived experience. And fourth, we get lost in thought because we're avoiding feeling. Thinking is safer than feeling. When we're in our heads, analyzing and conceptualizing and narrating, we're at a distance from direct experience, from sensation, from emotion. And for many of us, especially those who have experienced trauma or have painful emotions we don't want to face, staying in our heads feels protective. It feels like a way to avoid being overwhelmed. But it's a false protection because the emotions don't go away just because we're not feeling them. They get stored in the body, they influence our behavior unconsciously, they leak out in ways we don't recognize. Real safety comes from being able to be present with whatever arises, including difficult emotions, not from hiding in our thoughts. Now, let me share something with you that was absolutely transformative for me in my own journey of learning to work with my mind. I spent years of my life completely lost in thought. My mind was constantly active, constantly analyzing, constantly narrating my experience. And I didn't even realize it. I thought this was just how life was. I thought everyone lived like this, trapped in an endless internal monologue. And then I encountered meditation and mindfulness practices. And for the first time, I had a direct experience of what it's like to not be lost in thought. I had a moment of pure awareness, of being present without the filter of thinking. And it was revelatory. It was like I had been watching life on a screen my whole life, and suddenly I stepped through the screen into direct experience. Colors were brighter, sounds were clearer. I could actually taste my food. I could actually feel my body. I was here, truly here, for the first time in I don't know how long. But here's what was even more important than that experience of presence. I realized that I am not my thoughts. This was huge. Because I had been completely identified with my thinking, I believed I was the voice in my head. If the voice said, I'm not good enough, I believed I wasn't good enough. If the voice said, this is terrible, I believed it was terrible. If the voice said, I can't do this, I believed I couldn't do it. But in that moment of awareness, I saw clearly, thoughts are just phenomena that arise in consciousness. They're like clouds passing through the sky. But I'm not the clouds. I'm the sky. I'm the awareness in which thoughts appear and disappear. And that changes everything. Because once you realize you're not your thoughts, they lose their power over you. You can watch them without believing them. You can notice them without being controlled by them. You can let them pass without getting caught up in them. So how do you stop getting lost in thought? How do you create this kind of awareness? Let me give you a framework that has helped countless people, including myself. The first step is simply noticing. You can't change a pattern you're not aware of. So you have to start catching yourself when you're lost in thought. And the beautiful thing is, the moment you notice you're lost in thought, you're not lost anymore. The noticing itself is the awakening. So throughout your day, set the intention to check in with yourself. Ask, am I present right now, or am I lost in my head? Don't judge it if you're lost. Don't make yourself wrong. Just notice, oh, I'm thinking about what happened this morning. Oh, I'm worrying about tomorrow. Oh, I'm replaying that conversation again. Just noticing, without judgment, begins to create space between you and your thoughts. The second step is to anchor yourself in the present moment through your senses. Your thoughts are always about the past or the future. They're never about what's actually happening right now. So when you notice you're lost in thought, bring your attention to something in your immediate sensory experience. What do you see right in front of you? What do you hear in this moment? What do you feel in your body? What do you smell? What do you taste? Your senses only operate in the now. They're a direct line to presence. So when you engage your senses, you pull yourself out of the mental realm and into the realm of direct experience. This is why practices like mindful eating, mindful walking, and body scan meditations are so powerful. They train you to come back to your senses, to come back to now. The third step is to use your breath as an anchor. Your breath is always with you. It's always happening in the present moment, and it's intimately connected to your mental and emotional state. When you're anxious or stressed, your breath becomes shallow and rapid. When you're calm and present, your breath becomes deep and slow. So you can use your breath as both an indicator of your mental state and a tool to shift it. When you notice you're lost in thought, especially in anxious or stressful thinking, bring your attention to your breath. Don't try to change it at first. Just observe it. Notice the inhale. Notice the exhale. Notice the pause between breaths. As you watch your breath, your breathing will naturally begin to slow down and deepen. And as your breath changes, your mental state changes. The thoughts begin to quiet. The mind begins to settle. You come back to presence. Now, here's something crucial to understand. Stopping getting lost in thought doesn't mean stopping thinking altogether. Your mind is a tool, and it's a valuable tool when used appropriately. The problem isn't thinking itself. The problem is unconscious, compulsive thinking. The problem is thinking that happens automatically without your awareness or consent. The problem is being lost in thought rather than consciously choosing to think. So what I'm inviting you to develop is not the absence of thought, but a different relationship with thought. One where you're the master of your mind rather than the servant of it. One where you can choose to think when thinking is useful and choose to be present when thinking isn't needed. Let me give you a very practical way to work with this distinction. When you notice a thought, ask yourself, is this thought useful right now? Is it helping me solve an actual problem or make a real decision? Or is it just repetitive mental noise? If it's useful, if you're actively problem solving or planning or creating, then engage with the thought consciously. Use your mind deliberately. But when you're done with that task, put the thinking down. Don't let it continue in the background. And if the thought isn't useful, if it's just rumination or worry or self-criticism or fantasy, then you don't need to engage with it at all. You can simply notice it, acknowledge it, and let it pass without following it. This takes practice. Your mind has been running on autopilot for a long time. It's going to keep generating thoughts, but you don't have to believe every thought. You don't have to follow every thought. You can choose which thoughts to engage with and which to let float by like leaves on a stream. Here's an exercise I want you to try right now. Sit comfortably and close your eyes if you're able to. Take a few deep breaths to settle yourself. Now, I want you to imagine your mind is like the sky and your thoughts are like clouds. Some clouds are dark and heavy, like worries or fears. Some are light and fluffy, like pleasant daydreams. Some are fast-moving, some are slow, but they're all just clouds passing through the sky. Your job isn't to push the clouds away or grab onto them. Your job is simply to be the sky watching the clouds pass. So for the next few minutes, just watch your thoughts. Notice them arising. Notice their content. Notice their feeling tone. And notice them passing. Don't get involved with them. Don't analyze them. Don't judge them. Just watch them like you'd watch clouds in the sky. And whenever you realize you've gotten caught up in a thought that you've stopped watching and started thinking, just gently bring your attention back to watching, back to being the sky. This practice of watching your thoughts without getting involved with them is the foundation of mindfulness meditation, and it's one of the most powerful tools available for stopping getting lost in thought, because it trains you to distinguish between awareness and thought, between the observer and the observed. And the more you practice this, the more natural it becomes to live from the place of awareness rather than being constantly swept away by the stream of thinking. Now, I want to address something that often comes up when people start working with their minds in this way. You might notice that when you first start paying attention to your thoughts, it seems like there are more of them. It seems like your mind is more active and chaotic than you realize. And this can be discouraging. You might think you're doing it wrong or that the practice is making things worse, but what's actually happening is that you're becoming aware of what was always there. Your mind has always been this active. You just weren't noticing it before. It's like when you buy a new car and suddenly you see that model of car everywhere. The cars were always there. You just weren't paying attention to them. So don't be discouraged if you discover your mind is very busy. That's normal. That's what minds do. The victory isn't in having fewer thoughts. The victory is in not being lost in them. Let me share with you what happens in your life when you stop getting lost in thought. First, you become more present. You actually show up for your life. You taste your food. You see the people in front of you. You hear the sounds around you. You feel your emotions as they arise. You experience beauty and joy and connection that you were missing before because you were too busy thinking. Life becomes more vivid, more real, more alive. Second, you become less reactive. When you're not lost in thought, when there's space between stimulus and response, you can choose how you respond rather than reacting automatically from your conditioning. Someone says something that would normally trigger you, but instead of immediately reacting, you pause. You feel the reaction arising. You watch the thoughts that come up. And then you choose your response consciously. This changes your relationships, your work, your entire life. Third, you experience more peace. So much of our stress and anxiety comes from being lost in thought about the past and future. When you're present, when you're here now, there's often nothing wrong. Even if you're dealing with a challenge, when you're fully present to it rather than thinking about it and all its implications and what it means and what might happen, the challenge becomes much more manageable. You can deal with what's actually here rather than dealing with the stories your mind is creating about what's here. Fourth, you become more creative and intuitive. When the constant mental chatter quiets down, space opens up for new ideas, fresh insights, creative solutions. The answers you've been searching for often arise when you stop thinking and start being present, because creativity and intuition don't come from the thinking mind. They come from a deeper intelligence that can only be accessed when the mental noise subsides. And fifth, you discover who you really are. When you're not lost in thought, when you're not identified with the voice in your head, you discover that there's a you beyond all the mental activity. A you that's aware, that's present, that's whole and complete without needing to think a single thought. This is your true nature, your essential self, and it's been here all along, just obscured by the constant stream of thinking. When you connect with this deeper dimension of yourself, life transforms. Not because your circumstances change, but because you're no longer at the mercy of your mind. You're grounded in something deeper, something that can't be disturbed by thoughts or emotions or external events. Now, let me give you some practical strategies for different situations where people commonly get lost in thought. First, let's talk about rumination, those repetitive thoughts that go round and round, usually about something that happened in the past. You replay a conversation, analyzing every word, thinking about what you should have said, or you relive a painful experience, going over it again and again, stuck in the pain of it. This kind of thinking feels productive, like you're processing or figuring something out, but you're not. You're just re-traumatizing yourself. You're keeping the wound fresh. When you catch yourself ruminating, here's what to do. First, recognize that rumination is a habit, not a necessity. Your mind has learned to do this, and it can learn to do something else. Second, interrupt the pattern physically. Stand up, move your body, change your location. Rumination often happens when we're physically still, so movement can help break the mental loop. Third, redirect your attention deliberately. Give your mind something else to focus on. This could be a task that requires concentration, like a puzzle or a project. It could be a conversation with someone. It could be a physical activity like exercise or gardening. The key is to engage your attention fully in something present rather than allowing it to keep circling back to the past. Second, let's talk about worry, those anxious thoughts about the future. What if this happens? What if that goes wrong? What if I fail? What if they leave? What if I get sick? Worry is the mind's attempt to prepare for and prevent future problems, but it doesn't actually accomplish anything except making you miserable in the present. When you catch yourself worrying, try this practice. Ask yourself, is there any action I can take right now about this concern? If yes, take that action. Make the phone call, send the email, do the preparation, whatever it is, and then let the worry go, because you've done what you can do. If there's nothing you can actually do right now, then the worry is completely useless. It's not helping you prepare. It's not making you safer. It's just stealing your peace. So acknowledge that there's nothing to do right now, and consciously redirect your attention to what is actually happening in this moment, which is probably something quite different from the scary scenarios your mind is imagining. Third, let's talk about the inner critic. That voice that tells you you're not good enough, you're not doing it right, you're failing, you're flawed. This might be the most painful kind of thought to get lost in, because it attacks your very sense of self. When you catch yourself in self-critical thinking, remember, this is just a thought. It's not truth. It's a thought pattern you learned probably a long time ago, probably from someone else's voice that you internalized. You can choose not to believe it. You can choose to speak to yourself with kindness instead. A practice I find helpful is to imagine that your best friend or someone you love dearly was saying these things about themselves. What would you say to them? You'd probably be compassionate, encouraging, supportive. You deserve the same kindness from yourself. So when the inner critic speaks, thank it for trying to protect you, because that's often what self-criticism is trying to do in a twisted way. And then consciously choose a different thought, one that's more compassionate and more true. Now, I want to address meditation more directly because it's one of the most powerful tools for stopping getting lost in thought, but it's also one of the most misunderstood. Many people try meditation and give up because they think they're doing it wrong. They sit down to meditate, and their mind is immediately full of thoughts. They think meditation is supposed to make the mind blank, to stop all thinking. And when that doesn't happen, they believe they've failed. But that's not what meditation is. Meditation isn't about stopping thoughts. It's about noticing thoughts without getting lost in them. It's about returning again and again to the present moment, to your breath, to your body, to your senses. Every time you realize you've drifted into thought. In fact, the moment you realize you're lost in thought during meditation is actually the moment of success, not failure, because that's the moment of awareness. That's when you're waking up. The practice is in that returning, that coming back over and over again. And each time you do it, you're strengthening your capacity for awareness, for presence, for not being lost in thought. It's like exercise for your attention. So if you've tried meditation and felt like you were bad at it because your mind wouldn't stop thinking, try again with this new understanding. The goal isn't to stop thinking. The goal is to notice when you're thinking and return to presence. And if you do that once in a 20-minute meditation session, that's a successful meditation. If you do it 100 times, that's 100 successes. Let me also say something about the role of stillness in all of this. We live in a culture that's addicted to stimulation, to constant input, to never being bored. We fill every moment with something, scrolling, watching, listening, doing. And this constant stimulation feeds the mind, gives it more material to think about, keeps it busy, but we're afraid of stillness. We're afraid of what might come up if we stop the constant distraction. We're afraid we might have to feel something or face something we've been avoiding. But stillness is where you meet yourself. Stillness is where the thinking mind finally gets quiet enough that you can hear the deeper intelligence within you. Stillness is where healing happens, where clarity emerges, where peace resides. So I'm inviting you to build moments of stillness into your day. Not hours, just moments. 5 minutes of sitting quietly without your phone, a few minutes of standing outside and just being with nature, a short period of lying down and doing nothing. These moments of stillness might feel uncomfortable at first, Your mind might protest. You might feel restless or anxious. But if you can stay with it, if you can allow yourself to just be without needing to fill the space, something shifts. The mental chatter begins to quiet. The compulsive thinking loses its grip, and you begin to remember what it's like to simply exist without constantly narrating your existence. Here's something beautiful that happens when you stop getting lost in thought. You start to notice the gaps between thoughts. At first, you might think your thinking is continuous, an unbroken stream. But as you pay closer attention, you'll notice there are tiny spaces between thoughts, brief moments of no thought. These gaps are windows into pure awareness, into your true nature beyond thought. And as you become more present, these gaps become longer and more frequent. They're like little oases of peace in the desert of mental activity. And eventually, you begin to realize that you can rest in these gaps. You can be there in that space of no thought, and you're completely okay. In fact, you're more than okay. You're at peace. You're fully alive. You're here. This is what I want for you. Not a life where you never think, but a life where you're not constantly lost in thought. A life where you can use your mind when you need it and put it down when you don't. A life where you're present for your actual experience, not trapped in stories about your experience. A life where you know who you are beyond your thoughts, beyond your mental narratives, beyond the voice in your head. Because when you know that, when you live from that place of awareness, everything changes. Not because your life becomes perfect, but because you're finally here for it. You're finally awake. You're finally free. So here's what I want you to do. Starting today, starting right now, begin practicing the art of noticing. Notice when you're lost in thought. Notice when you're present. Notice the difference between the two. And every time you notice you're lost, celebrate that noticing. That's the moment of awakening. That's when you're free. And then gently, without judgment, bring yourself back to your breath, back to your body, back to your senses, back to this moment. Do this 10 times today, 20 times, 100 times. It doesn't matter how many times you get lost. What matters is how many times you come back. Because each return is a strengthening of your capacity for presence, your freedom from the tyranny of thought. And know this, you are not your thoughts. You never were, you never will be. You are the awareness that knows the thoughts. You are the space in which thinking happens. You are the sky, vast and clear and infinite, and thoughts are just clouds passing through. Let them pass. Don't hold on. Don't push away. Just watch. Just be. Just breathe. This is your birthright. This is your true nature. This freedom, this presence, this peace that exists beyond thought. It's not something you need to create or achieve or earn. It's what you are when you stop getting lost in thought. It's what's here, always here, waiting for you to recognize it. Come home to it. Come home to yourself. Come home to now. If you're here right now, if something drew you to these words in this moment, I believe it's because you're carrying something heavy. Maybe it's grief. Maybe it's disappointment. Maybe it's exhaustion from trying so hard for so long. Maybe it's the weight of responsibilities that feel crushing. Maybe it's the burden of dreams that haven't materialized. Maybe it's the heaviness of relationships that aren't working, of a body that isn't cooperating, of a mind that won't quiet down, of a heart that won't stop hurting. Whatever it is that's making life feel heavy for you right now, I want you to know that I see you, I honor what you're going through, and I want to share something with you that has the power to lift that heaviness, not by denying it, not by pretending it isn't there, but by helping you understand it differently and carry it in a new way. The first thing I want to say to you is this: the heaviness you're feeling is real and it's valid. Don't let anyone minimize it. Don't let anyone tell you it's all in your head, or that you should just think positive, or that others have it worse. Your pain is your pain. Your struggle is your struggle. Your heaviness is your heaviness. and it deserves to be acknowledged, to be felt, to be honored. So many people are walking around carrying enormous weight, and they're doing it alone because they've been taught that they should be able to handle it. That asking for help is weakness, that showing vulnerability is shameful. But I want to tell you something. The fact that you're feeling the weight means you're alive, you're human, you're real. It means you haven't numbed yourself completely. It means you're still here, still present, still feeling. And that takes tremendous courage. But here's what I also want you to understand. While the heaviness is real, it doesn't have to be permanent. While the weight is significant, you don't have to carry it the way you've been carrying it. Because here's the truth that most people don't realize. Much of the heaviness we feel isn't coming from the actual circumstances of our lives. It's coming from how we're relating to those circumstances. It's coming from the meaning we're giving them, the stories we're telling about them, the resistance we're bringing to them. And when we change how we relate to what's happening, the weight often shifts dramatically, even when the circumstances themselves haven't changed at all. Let me explain what I mean by sharing something from my own life. There was a period when I felt completely crushed by life. My first marriage had ended. I was struggling financially. I was questioning my career path. I felt like I had failed at everything that mattered. The weight of all of this was almost unbearable. I remember waking up every morning with this heaviness in my chest, this sense of dread, this feeling that I was drowning. And the way I was dealing with it was by fighting it, by trying to push it away, by telling myself I shouldn't feel this way, by comparing myself to others and feeling even worse, by replaying all my mistakes and beating myself up, by catastrophizing about the future. All of this internal activity was adding weight to weight. It was making everything so much heavier than it needed to be. Then one day, something shifted. I was talking to a mentor, telling him how heavy everything felt. And he said something that stopped me in my tracks. He said, "Wayne, you're not just carrying the weight of what's actually happening. You're carrying the weight of your resistance to what's happening. You're carrying the weight of your judgment about what's happening. You're carrying the weight of your fear about what might happen. You're carrying the weight of your regret about what did happen. If you put all that down, what would be left?" And I sat with that question. I really sat with it. And I realized if I put down all of that extra weight, all of that mental and emotional baggage I was adding to the situation, what would be left was just the situation itself, which was challenging but not unbearable. The unbearable part was everything I was piling on top of it. That realization was the beginning of everything changing for me. Not because my circumstances immediately changed. They didn't. But because I learned to distinguish between the actual weight of life and the weight I was adding to it. And I learned that while I couldn't always control the first one, I had complete control over the second one. I could choose to stop adding weight. I could choose to put down the resistance, the judgment, the fear, the regret. I could choose to carry what was actually mine to carry and release everything else. And when I did that, life became so much lighter, even though externally it looked exactly the same. So I want to ask you right now, what are you carrying that isn't yours to carry? What weight have you picked up that you could actually put down? I'm going to tell you some of the common ones I see people carrying unnecessarily. And I want you to really check in with yourself about whether you're carrying any of these. First, there's the weight of other people's expectations. You're trying to live up to what your parents wanted, what society says you should be, what your friends expect, what your culture demands. You're contorting yourself to fit into boxes that were never meant for you. You're exhausting yourself trying to please people who will never be satisfied. And all of this is adding tremendous weight to your life. But here's the truth. You don't have to live up to anyone else's expectation. You don't owe anyone a version of yourself that isn't true. You're not here to fulfill other people's dreams for you. You're here to live your own life in your own way, according to your own values and truth. Then there's the weight of guilt and regret. You're carrying mistakes you made years ago, decisions you wish you could take back, words you wish you hadn't said, opportunities you missed, relationships you damaged. You're replaying these things over and over, punishing yourself, believing that if you just feel bad enough for long enough, somehow that will make it right. But it won't. Guilt and regret that don't lead to learning and change are just useless weight. They're not serving you or anyone else. They're just crushing you. And here's what you need to understand. You did the best you could with the awareness you had at the time. You made choices based on who you were then, not who you are now. And beating yourself up about it doesn't change the past. The only thing you can do is learn from it, make amends if that's possible and appropriate, and then let it go. That weight is not yours to carry anymore. There's also the weight of worry about the future. You're carrying anxiety about things that haven't happened and might never happen. You're playing out worst-case scenarios in your mind. You're trying to control things that are completely out of your control. You're living in a future that doesn't exist while missing the present that does. And all of this worry is incredibly heavy. But here's the truth. The future isn't here yet. You don't know what's going to happen. All your worry is based on projection, on assumption, on fear. And even if some of the things you're worried about do happen, you will handle them when they happen. You don't need to handle them now. You don't need to carry tomorrow's weight today. Today has enough weight of its own. Put down tomorrow's weight. It's not yours yet. Another huge weight that people carry is resentment toward others. You're holding on to anger at people who hurt you, who betrayed you, who disappointed you, who didn't show up the way you needed them to. You're replaying what they did, rehearsing what you wish you had said, waiting for an apology that may never come, wanting them to understand how much they hurt you. And all of this resentment is like carrying poison that you hope will somehow affect them. But it doesn't affect them. It only affects you. It only makes you sick. It only adds weight to your life. And here's what you need to hear. Holding on to resentment doesn't punish them. It punishes you. Forgiveness isn't about them. It's about you. It's about releasing yourself from the prison of resentment. It's about putting down that weight so you can be free. Now, I know what some of you might be thinking, but Wayne, these things are real. These feelings are real. I can't just decide not to feel them, and you're absolutely right. I'm not suggesting you can just flip a switch and make heavy feelings disappear. What I'm suggesting is that you can change your relationship with those feelings. You can stop identifying with them. You can stop believing they define you. You can stop feeding them with your attention and your stories. You can acknowledge them without being consumed by them. You can feel them without becoming them. Here's a practice that can help with this. When you notice yourself feeling heavy, I want you to get really specific about what you're actually feeling. Not just I feel heavy, but I feel grief about losing my mother. I feel fear about my financial situation. I feel shame about my body. I feel exhaustion from caregiving. Name it specifically. And then, and this is crucial, I want you to say, I am having a feeling of grief, or I am experiencing fear, rather than I am grieving or I am afraid. Do you notice the difference? In the first one, you're observing the feeling. You're the awareness that notices the feeling. In the second one, you're identifying with the feeling. You've become the feeling. This might seem like a small linguistic shift, but it's actually profound. When you can observe your feelings rather than become them, they lose some of their grip on you. They're still there, but they don't own you completely. There's a you that's larger than the feeling, a you that can hold the feeling without being crushed by it. Let me share something with you about the nature of feelings, because understanding this can really lighten your load. Feelings are like weather. They come and they go. They arise and they pass. No feeling is permanent. Even though when you're in the middle of a heavy feeling, it feels like it will last forever. But it won't. Grief comes in waves. It crashes over you, and then it recedes, and then it comes again. Fear spikes, and then subsides. Anger flares, and then cools. This is the nature of emotion. It's always moving, always changing, always in flux. The problem is when we resist this natural flow, when we try to hold on to certain feelings or push away others, when we believe we should feel a certain way or shouldn't feel a certain way, all of that resistance creates tension, and tension creates heaviness. What if, Instead of resisting your feelings, you allowed them. What if you said, this is what I'm feeling right now. I don't like it, but I'm willing to feel it. I'm not going to run from it or numb it or fight it. I'm just going to let it be here. Something amazing happens when you do this. The feeling doesn't intensify the way you fear it will. Actually, it often softens, because so much of the intensity of difficult feelings comes from our resistance to them. When you stop fighting, when you stop tensing against the feeling, it moves through you more easily. It still hurts, it's still uncomfortable, but it's not as overwhelming. It's not as heavy, because you're not adding the weight of resistance to the weight of the feeling itself. Now, I want to talk about something that makes life feel incredibly heavy, and that's the belief that you're alone in your struggle. So many people are suffering in isolation, believing that everyone else has it together, that everyone else is handling life fine, that they're the only one who's falling apart. But that's not true. Everyone, and I mean everyone, goes through periods when life feels heavy. Everyone has their own private struggles, their own secret pain, their own hidden burdens. The person who looks like they have it all together is dealing with something you can't see. The person who seems so strong is fighting battles you know nothing about. We're all carrying something. We're all struggling with something. You are not alone in feeling the weight of life. And here's what's powerful about understanding this. When you stop believing you're the only one, when you stop isolating yourself in your pain, when you reach out and connect with others about what you're really going through, the weight becomes lighter. Not because the circumstances change, but because shared weight is lighter weight. When you allow yourself to be vulnerable, to be real, to say, I'm struggling and I need support, you often discover that others are struggling too. You create space for authentic connection. You break the illusion of separateness. You remember that we're all in this human experience together, and we're meant to help each other carry the weight when it becomes too much. So if you're carrying something heavy right now, I want to encourage you to reach out, talk to a friend, call a family member, see a therapist, join a support group. Whatever form it takes, don't carry this alone. You don't have to have it all together. You don't have to be strong all the time. You don't have to figure it all out by yourself. Asking for help isn't weakness. It's wisdom. It's courage. It's being human. And often, the simple act of speaking your pain out loud, of having someone witness it and say, I see you, I hear you, you're not alone, can lift the weight in ways that nothing else can. Let me talk now about the weight of responsibility, because this is something so many people struggle with. You're taking care of aging parents while raising children. You're running a business while managing a household. You're dealing with your own health issues while supporting others through theirs. You're trying to keep everything and everyone afloat, and it feels like if you stop for even a moment, everything will collapse. And the weight of that responsibility, the weight of being needed by so many people, the weight of feeling like you can't let anyone down, it's crushing. I understand this. I've lived this. And I want to tell you something that might be difficult to hear, but that you desperately need to hear. You cannot do it all. You cannot be everything to everyone. You cannot carry the weight of the world on your shoulders. You're not meant to. Here's what often happens with responsible people. They keep saying yes to more and more until they collapse. They put everyone else's needs before their own until they have nothing left to give. They sacrifice their own well-being in service of others until they're so depleted that they can barely function. And they tell themselves, this is noble, this is loving, this is what you're supposed to do. But it's not. It's martyrdom. And martyrdom doesn't serve anyone in the long run. Because when you burn out, when you break down, then you can't help anyone. Then everyone suffers, including you. So you have to get clear about what's actually yours to carry and what isn't. You have to learn to set boundaries, even when it's uncomfortable. You have to learn to say no, even when you feel guilty. You have to learn to prioritize your own well-being, not as selfishness, but as sustainability. You have to understand that taking care of yourself isn't taking away from others. It's ensuring that you have something to give. You cannot pour from an empty cup. You cannot light someone else's candle if your own flame has gone out. Taking care of yourself is taking care of everyone who depends on you. It's not optional, it's essential. And here's something else about responsibility. You're not responsible for other people's feelings, choices, or lives. You can love them, support them, help them, guide them, but you cannot live their lives for them. You cannot make their choices for them. You cannot feel their feelings for them. Each person has their own journey, their own lessons, their own path. And when you try to control or fix or save them, you're taking on weight that isn't yours. You're interfering with their growth. You're robbing them of the opportunity to develop their own strength. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do is let people carry their own weight, make their own mistakes, find their own way. That doesn't mean you abandon them. It means you support them without taking over. You care without controlling. You love without smothering. Now, I want to address something about the heaviness of disappointment, because so many people are carrying the weight of dreams that didn't work out, plans that fell apart, expectations that weren't met. You thought your life would look different by now. You thought you'd be further along. You thought certain things would have happened that haven't happened. And the gap between where you are and where you thought you'd be feels devastating. It feels like failure. It feels heavy. And I want you to understand something. Life almost never goes according to plan. Almost everyone's life looks different than they imagined it would. That doesn't mean you failed. That doesn't mean you did something wrong. That means you're human, living in a complex world where countless factors beyond your control influence outcomes. But here's what's beautiful about this. Even though it might not feel beautiful right now, sometimes the life you end up with is better than the life you planned. Sometimes the detours lead to destinations you never would have found on the original route. Sometimes what looks like a closed door is actually a redirection towards something more aligned with who you're becoming. I'm not saying that all disappointment has a silver lining or that everything happens for a reason in some cosmic sense. I'm saying that you have a choice about what you do with disappointment. You can let it make you bitter, or you can let it make you wiser. You can let it crush you, or you can let it open you. You can let it define you as a failure, or you can let it redirect you towards something new. The weight of disappointment becomes lighter when you can release your attachment to how you thought things should be and open yourself to how things actually are. When you can grieve what didn't happen while staying curious about what might happen next. When you can honor your original dreams while making space for new ones to emerge. This isn't about giving up on what you want. It's about holding what you want more lightly with an open hand rather than a clenched fist. It's about being willing to dance with life rather than trying to force life to follow your choreography. Let me share something about the weight of the past, because so many people are living in the present while carrying the heavy baggage of the past. Trauma from childhood, pain from previous relationships, failures from earlier attempts, losses that happened years ago, and all of this past pain is coloring the present, making everything heavier than it needs to be. You're not just dealing with what's happening now. You're dealing with what happened then through the lens of now. And that creates a compounding effect where the weight just keeps building. Here's what you need to understand. The past is gone. It's not happening anymore. What's happening now is your thoughts about the past, your feelings about the past, your stories about the past. And while you can't change what happened, you can change your relationship with what happened. You can reframe it. You can find new meaning in it. You can extract the lessons without carrying the burden. You can acknowledge the pain without letting it define your present. This often requires help, professional help from a therapist or counselor who can guide you through processing trauma and pain in healthy ways. But it's possible. Healing is possible. Releasing the weight of the past is possible. You don't have to carry what happened to you forever. You can put it down. Now, I want to talk about the physical weight that often accompanies emotional heaviness, because the body holds what the mind tries to suppress. When you're carrying emotional weight, it often manifests as physical heaviness, fatigue, tension, pain, illness. Your body is trying to tell you something. It's trying to get your attention. It's saying, this is too much. I need rest. I need care. I need gentleness. And so often we ignore these signals. We push through. We medicate the symptoms without addressing the cause. We treat our bodies like machines that should just keep going no matter what. But your body isn't a machine. Your body is the vehicle through which you experience life, and it deserves your compassion and care. Part of lightening the heaviness you feel is tending to your body, moving it gently, even when you don't feel like it, feeding it nourishing food, even when you want comfort food, resting it fully, even when you feel guilty for not being productive, breathing deeply, even when your breath has been shallow for so long, releasing the tension you're holding in your shoulders, your jaw, your stomach. Your body and your emotions are intimately connected. When you care for one, you care for both. When you lighten the load on your body, you lighten the load on your whole being. Let me give you a practice right now that can help with this physical release. I want you to stand up if you're able to. If not, you can do this sitting. Close your eyes and scan your body. Notice where you're holding tension. Where is the heaviness physically located? Is it in your chest, your shoulders, your stomach, your head? Once you've identified where you're holding it, I want you to breathe into that place. Imagine your breath flowing directly to that area, bringing space and softness and release. As you exhale, imagine the heaviness flowing out of your body, draining down through your feet into the earth. Do this for several breaths. And then, if you're standing, gently shake your body. Shake your arms, your legs, your whole body. Let it be loose and free. This might feel silly, but it's incredibly effective at releasing held tension. Your body wants to let go of the weight. Give it permission to do so. Now, I want to address something that might be making life feel heavy, and that's the sense that things will never get better, that this is just how life is now, that you're stuck in this heaviness forever. This is a lie that depression and exhaustion tell you. It's not true. But when you're in it, it feels absolutely true. It feels like reality. And that feeling of permanence, that belief that nothing will ever change, adds enormous weight to everything you're experiencing. Because if you believe this was temporary, if you believe there was light at the end of the tunnel, you could endure it more easily. But when you believe it's forever, when you believe there's no way out, the weight becomes unbearable. So I need you to hear this, even if you can't quite believe it yet. This will pass. This heaviness will not last forever. You will not feel this way for the rest of your life. Things will shift. Things will change. You will have light days again. You will laugh again. You will feel joy again. You will experience moments when life doesn't feel heavy at all. I can't tell you when. I can't tell you how. But I can tell you with absolute certainty that it will happen. Because that's the nature of life. Nothing stays the same. Everything is always moving, always shifting, always changing. And that includes your emotional state, your circumstances, your capacity to cope. But you don't have to wait for everything to change before you can feel a little lighter. You can lighten your load right now by changing just one small thing. Maybe it's the way you're breathing. Maybe it's the thought you're believing. Maybe it's the perspective you're taking. Maybe it's the boundary you're setting. Maybe it's the help you're asking for. Maybe it's the compassion you're extending to yourself. Small shifts create momentum. Small changes accumulate. You don't have to transform everything at once. You just have to take one small step in a different direction. Let me tell you what I want for you as we come to the close of our time together. I want you to know in your bones that you are strong enough to carry what's actually yours to carry. You are, even if you don't feel strong right now, even if you feel like you're barely holding on, you have strength you haven't tapped into yet. You have resources you don't know about yet. You have help available that you haven't accessed yet. And you're going to get through this. Not because it's going to be easy, not because the weight is going to magically disappear, but because you're going to learn to carry it differently. You're going to learn to put down what isn't yours. You're going to learn to ask for support when it's too much. You're going to learn to be gentle with yourself as you navigate this difficult time. I also want you to know that the heaviness you're feeling doesn't mean you're broken. It doesn't mean you're weak. It doesn't mean you're failing. It means you're alive. It means you care. It means you're engaged with life, not checked out from it. And yes, that means you feel pain, but it also means you're capable of feeling joy, love, connection, meaning. You can't numb one without numbing the others. So the fact that you're feeling the weight means you're still here, still open, still available for all of life's experiences, including the beautiful ones. And I want you to know that you matter. Your life matters. Your struggle matters. You are not a burden. You are not too much. You are not broken beyond repair. You are a human being having a difficult human experience, and you deserve compassion, support, kindness, and love. From others, yes, but especially from yourself. Can you speak to yourself the way you would speak to someone you love who's going through what you're going through? Can you offer yourself the same tenderness, the same patience, the same encouragement? You deserve that. You've always deserved that. So here's what I'm asking you to do. Right now, in this moment, I want you to put your hand on your heart. Feel it beating. That heartbeat is proof that you're still here. You're still fighting. You're still showing up. And that's enough. You don't have to have it all figured out. You don't have to be okay. You don't have to carry everything perfectly. You just have to keep breathing, keep putting one foot in front of the other, keep showing up for your life as best you can. And on the days when you can't do even that, let yourself rest. Let yourself be held by something larger than yourself, whether that's community, nature, spirituality, or simply the knowing that this too shall pass. Life feels heavy right now. I know, but you are not alone in that heaviness. And you are stronger than you know. And this will not last forever. And you are loved and worthy and enough exactly as you are, carrying whatever you're carrying. Put down what you can. Ask for help with the rest. Be gentle with yourself. Take it one moment at a time. And know that somewhere, someone you've never met is believing in you, is rooting for you, is holding space for your healing and your lightness and your joy to return. I'm that someone. And I'm telling you, you're going to be okay. Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but you're going to be okay. Keep going.